to use augmented reality, to of course take a picture. And all of the pictures that you do take will disappear. Why? Because we believe that social media has increasingly become a really stressful place for consumers and brands. Social media originally promised to be the perfect platform to engage and develop some really rich relationships with friends. But what's transpired over recent years is increasingly consumers, and often brands as well, are finding the social media experience quite an uneasy one. We wanted to remove the tension and the pressure and the stress that often comes with social media, and so we eliminated any of the benchmarks or metrics which are used across other platforms so that there wasn't as much tension or pressure in creating the perfect piece of content. Now, having a look at content from a slightly different perspective, we'll now have a look at the value of AI, or artificial intelligence, which has obviously been a recurring theme today. So the intelligent application of systems which typically require human intelligence for areas such as visual perception or decision making, can now be deployed in a thoughtful way, which really helps to improve consumer experience. So let's bring this to life with an example that I'm sure all of us in the room are far too familiar with, the email. Now, emails are a really great example of how the combination of AI and also machine learning has really helped to improve consumer experience. And what's funny with this example is that for the most part, and certainly for the average consumer, they don't even realise that AI and machine learning are working to improve their experience and really set the benchmark for our expectations of what quality should look like. Email without spam filters, for instance, would be completely unmanageable. In fact, Google estimates that between 50 to 70% of all messages that Gmail receive are in fact spam. And yet their AI is able to identify ransomware and malware and automatically block them. In combination with Google's machine learning modeling, which is able to surface spam and phishing messages with a 99.9% degree of accuracy. So what does this all mean for consumers? Essentially, it means that with the combination of these two platforms, we're able to offer consumers a seamless, streamlined, and very relevant experience. Now, we've applied these same principles and technology to our recent platform redesign, which has separated the social from the media and developed a really personalised experience. So this is an example of your friends page, and on this you're able to automatically surface and pre-order the friends who you engage with the most. So Snapchat's machine learning is able to identify those friends who you chat and engage with the most and ensure that they are at your closest port of call. Now, similarly from a content perspective, much like Netflix's ordering, we have ordered our content in a really intelligent way, which is based on hundreds of data signals which are continuously self-adjusting based on relevancy, recency, diversity, content quality to ensure a really personalised experience. Now, the algorithm is obviously continuing to learn and improve and build up an understanding of consumer preferences, but soon it means that you'll be able to watch, listen, and engage with the content that you want to the most. Now, a slightly different tact, and one which hasn't been raised today, is around augmented reality. So we believe that play is powerful, and it's not just about silly fun. Playing was often the first way that you learnt to experience products. So if we can translate these same notions of fun and curiosity and apply them to brands, we're giving consumers the opportunity to experience products like they've never been able to before. So with us, the notion of augmented reality is an incredibly important one, and we're focused on two key areas. One, driving context, and two, driving consumer behaviour, so that we can ensure that we're driving usage and scale. So when we release a new AR function or a new capability, it's not just about a tech test. It's about ensuring that we're driving consumer behaviour and adoption to encourage scale. And with this, we're seeing the equivalent of 500 years of augmented reality playtime over a 24-hour period each day. So with the significant scale that we're able to offer, we've obviously learned a little bit around what works from an AR perspective. And we'll just share with you 3 key ideas. The first one is open to the face. So as that selfie stat may have referenced to you, people like to look at themselves. So any experience which you're able to use the face to unlock and include the person as their main character works really well from an engagement perspective. Secondly, gamification. Now, I'm sure this is of no surprise to the majority of you in the room, but adding a degree of interactivity, adding a degree of gamification and reward and success also not only encourages engagement, but encourages repeat usage as well. And then the third area is around adding additional characters as well. So a degree of interactivity and the ability for people to be able to engage with their close friends and networks, both local and global, really encourages adoption as well. But to bring this to life, I'll take you through 2 recent examples of one of the global brands. The first one being Netflix. So for the Stranger Things fans in the room, Netflix came to us wanting to really immerse Snapchatters in an upside-down world and give them the opportunity to experience what it was like to be a part of this. So working with our designers, and this is a look at the behind-the-scenes set which was created, which hopefully will give you a sense of the complexity and sophistication required in a 3D augmented reality build of this nature. We were able to create this portal experience which really blurred the lines of VR and AR. And this is the finished product. And you can see where people are consuming and engaging with it and ultimately then stepping out into the experience that they were in before. So in this instance, you finish back on Venice Beach at our head office. Now, what was so fascinating about this particular experience is that on average, people were spending 3 minutes engaging with this particular execution. And we actually had, over a 24-hour period, more Snapchatters engage and interact with this particular platform than watched the opening episode of Stranger Things over the period of a week. So it just gives you a sense in terms of the scale that we're getting and able to achieve from these type of experiences. Now, the second one is a slightly different one. So some of you in the room may have even had this poster up on your bedroom back in the 90s, but I'm sure and hope that all of you would be able to recognise Jordan's iconic slam dunk. So Nike, which obviously is a brand which has been referenced a couple of times, worked really closely with us throughout the All-Star weekend to not just announce a new sneaker product which was going to hit the stands, but also to drive sale as well. So they wanted to partner with us to give consumers the opportunity to buy what was a very highly coveted sneaker through Snapchat. Now, this came to life across 3 key areas. The first one being Snap Map. So this is where consumers were invited to a particular area which we knew would be of interest to basketball fans. And when they entered this particular location, they were able to unlock an augmented reality experience, as shown in the middle there. Now, this one obviously relives that iconic slam dunk, but it also gave consumers the opportunity to purchase the product. So to give you a sense of the success behind this one, all of the sneakers sold out within a 27-minute period of this going live, and all of them were also delivered within a 3-hour period to the consumers who purchased them, just to give you a sense of the scale. Now, what makes play so powerful for brands is its opportunity to drive not only consideration, but also trial, as consumers are able to effectively pinch, pull, stretch, tear, and try on products like they've never been able to before. So for BMW, this resulted in Snapchatters being able to park the brand new BMW in their own garage. Or for Maybelline, it gave consumers the opportunity to try on, experiment and play with the new product release. So to wrap up everything that I've been saying, we are incredibly excited by tech developments which enable us to improve, enhance or invent new ways for consumers to engage, interact and also experience the world around them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathryn. Hi everyone, I'm Faaez Samadi, Marketing Editor at Campaign360. That was a fascinating presentation. We've got just a few short minutes for some Q&A, so let's get straight into it. I thought, we're talking a lot about the sort of technology and the trends that you're seeing at Snapchat. But I thought I'd start where you started in terms of camera marketing. And the idea that, we're all more visual than we were before because of the developments in the mobile phone. Presumably you don't think that's sort of going anywhere, and that will be a trend for the years to come with, as more and more consumers are picking up mobile phones.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from what we're seeing across our platform, it's certainly a behaviour which is pretty endemic to the way that this generation is communicating. We don't see it as a trend so much as a language.
Okay.
The ability for people to express themselves in a visual way is so much more impactful and meaningful than to send a traditional text message. So we certainly can see this only growing and flourishing as it takes hold.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I guess part of that, is to do with the changes in media consumption habits. What have you learned in the sort of time that you've been with Snapchat in terms of how young people are consuming their media? Is it, is it all more visual? Is it all going to be, text or video? Is it all going to be sort of camera-based in your opinion?
From our perspective, I think it's a combination of not just how people are communicating, so the kind of visual communication, but also how they're consuming content, as you referenced. So increasingly, brands and publishers and agencies are creating mobile-built content, which is really fantastic and is obviously reflective of the way that consumers are engaging with kind of content. We're seeing globally, on average, 3 hours a day is spent consuming content on mobile. In Singapore, it sits at 7 hours. So that's obviously an audience which is over-indexing compared with kind of traditional forms of media. So the more that the brands and publishers are able to create content in a purpose-built fashion, the more that we're seeing from an engagement and results perspective off the back of it.
Great, and so taking that as our sort of base, how would you see that evolving in the future when we have even more people connected sort of digitally and on mobile?
And it will evolve to give choice. So as more consumers, as more brands, as more publishers are creating content, there's obviously the scalability and the choice in terms of where are you finding this platform, or where are you finding this content rather. We're fortunate to work with brands like the Wall Street Journal who are creating content for our platform, recognising there's an opportunity to engage with an audience which they may not typically be receiving through traditional means.
Great. And sort of moving on a bit, I guess, to technology. Obviously, you spoke a bit about AR. Where do you think this sort of area is heading for you guys, or for use of the camera into sort of new, maybe VR or MR, or any sort of new areas of technology that you think we haven't got to yet, but everyone's still kind of talking about?
From my perspective, the shift from AR to test and innovation to actually driving results is probably the greatest shift that we're seeing from a brand and agency perspective. When you're starting to look at AR from a performance-led perspective rather than just to sit in an innovation or sit in a test budget, but you're actually able to prove out results or effectiveness or sales, that's when it becomes quite exciting, and that's when you get increased investment and opportunities to really challenge. And the theme that's come up a couple of times today is all around continuing to push and test, and we're kind of big proponents of that, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of when you talk about the test and learning around these technologies, do you see that there has been a bit of a shift in that mindset, that people do look at these technologies, particularly AR in this example, as a performance measure that can be taken to senior management and go, look, this isn't just messing around, we know what we're doing here, and we can use it as a real tool to drive trial or conversion?
Initially not, candidly, but now I think that they are. I mean, that Netflix example and having people spend 3 minutes with a piece of content, could they have created a 3-minute trailer and run it across the platform and kind of other networks? Absolutely. Would they have had the same engagement and the same opportunity to connect with audiences? Arguably not. So where you are able to substantiate it and provide the rigour around the results, be it through sales or be it through any of the kind of key KPIs, I think we'll be able to continue to have a performance-led conversation.
Great. And I guess talking about brands and their connection with consumers, do you think that, how well, in your opinion, are brands interacting in that ephemeral content space? Like, is there still a lot more for people to learn, or do you think they're, where are we on the scale? Are we sort of somewhere acceptable right now?
I won't profess to be the expert, but I think that brands are, absolutely. There's always a lot for all of us to learn from that perspective, but we're working with a breadth of brands, be it through wanting to sell makeup to cars to movies, and it shows, I guess, how mainstream it's become in terms of the need to create content. I think what we encourage brands to remember is these consumers are consuming with their audiences and their closest friends in 2 and 3 second sound bites. So for a brand, you need to ensure that that's a mentality and the filter within which you're creating content as well. If you're wanting people to spend longer with the brand than you are with their closest friends from that perspective as well.
Yeah, I think that sort of personal connection thing is very important and sort of growing trend in terms of, we hear a lot about how consumers, particularly young consumers, are valuing what they hear from sort of trusted source, whether it's a family friend or family member, and how do you think brands can get a better hold of that space without, as we've heard earlier, someone talks about being a bit too creepy or not being very authentic about it?
Absolutely. I mean, close friends, connections and recommendations and referrals are the most powerful way of being able to promote and advocate a product. On Snapchat, you will have less friends than you will across any other platform, but the friends that you do have will be the ones that you're typically engaging with 25 times a day. They're the closest friends, and by extension, you'd expect the power to communicate and convey a brand message throughout that will be pretty influential as well.
I suppose sort of at the heart of all of this, you talked about it earlier, about was sort of authenticity with your content. I think young consumers we read about really value that. They don't want to be sort of actively sold to. Do you think that that's an area where people will only get more sharper and have greater expectations in the authenticity of their interaction, either through ephemeral content or through the camera?
Absolutely, and I think it's brands still remaining true to their particular brand principles as well. The BMW example, being fun, which is a brand principle from a Snap perspective, isn't necessarily a brand value of BMW's. Does that mean that they don't have a really valued role to play on the platform and can achieve significant success? Not at all. They're still true to their commitment to innovate and engage and produce market-leading products. They're just doing it in a way which is platform appropriate, whether it's on Snap or Wall Street Journal or any of the other platforms. Yeah,
because I wonder about it sometimes. You talked a lot about it, the idea of fun and play. We heard from some of the creators earlier talking about just playing with technology. Do you think that there is a bit more in that space that brands could learn from, and perhaps they're a little risk averse in that idea of you can be authentic, but being fun, is that a bit too frivolous?
Frivolous, no, not if you're able to support it with results, which is why the scale, the engagement, the proof points is really important. We won't release a product until it's being tested on consumers. So all of our products start out life as a consumer-facing product through which we're able to iterate and learn and understand adoption before we will make it a commercial product. So there's a degree of surety in terms of that engagement from that perspective.
I thought I just wanted to pick up a bit on what you said about sort of the stress of social media, because obviously, that's a lot of how people interact through your platform, and I just wanted to sort of ask you about some of the learnings you have around that, because you said that, as a result, I think you said sort of brands could have, or perceived to have, a sort of somewhat uneasy relationship. What is it that consumers, particularly young consumers, are feeling stressed about online? Is it messages? Is it too much interaction?
I think it touches on a few of the questions which you've had around authenticity and engagement from that perspective. This generation has grown up with platforms where you're able to critique and judge and view people's experiences, and you know, they're incredibly powerful platforms out there, but they're used in very different ways. I went for a run this morning, and running in Singapore humidity isn't my friend, so I took a snap of myself afterwards looking horrific and sweaty and red and everything, and sent it to my friends. And at the same time I took a photo of my sneakers on the beach down there, and you know, hashtag run, hashtag healthness, hashtag inspiration. They're completely different experiences to the way that you kind of convey yourself, and I think that the more the brands can recognise the differences from that perspective and adopt either creative or messaging or tone accordingly is really important.
Is there still that tension in that regard, and as you say, you know, it comes down to the experience you're having at the time, and that's what you choose to share, and I presume that means you give over as a brand a bit more control to the people who, you know, the consumers using the platform, if they're going to share their experience with your brand in different ways. Is that something you think there's still a little bit of reticence about, a loosening of the reins a little around the brand message, allowing consumers to take it on?
I don't think it's necessarily around empowering consumers to take on the brand message, but it's just consumers are able to identify and quickly read if a brand isn't being true to who they are. And to the theme earlier around heritage, and you know, when brands have really wonderful stories, then tell them, but tell them in ways which are appropriate to the particular platforms or the particular audiences that you're wanting to communicate to, if you're wanting to drive advocacy and inspiration from that perspective as well.
Great. I guess, you know, sort of a large part of some of the themes today in terms of how consumers react or interact online is to do with sort of accountability. And there's sort of greater accountability, greater scrutiny. We've heard lots today about the ups and downs of various platforms. You know, you've got Facebook, we've talked about a lot, there's sort of a bit from Twitter. Obviously, Snapchat is not immune to these sorts of things, given sort of, you know, recent headlines and things. Is that something that brands and platforms need to get on board with these new consumers who have high expectations and are demanding greater accountability?
I think accountability needs to be front and centre of any of the ways that brands, platforms and consumers are interacting. Accountability and brand safety are things which are incredibly precious to us, both from a commercial but more importantly from a consumer perspective as well. So to all of the talks around data and privacy, you know, that's absolutely at the forefront of kind of our minds when we're interacting and engaging with brands and also consumers from that perspective as well, and we all need to be held to account from that perspective.
Fantastic. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I thought I'd ask you just, you know, you guys, you've been in APAC, Snapchat for sort of 18 months or so now. What are your thoughts on the region in terms of the consumers? What are the trends you're seeing, or differences perhaps or similarities with, you know, your heritage in the western part of the world?
Yeah, it's still early days from our perspective. We're very encouraged by the signs of growth that we're seeing from both an audience and commercial perspective as well. There are quite a lot of nuances, obviously, from each of the different markets, both in terms of their engagement with the platform and then also in terms of the engagement with the broader market and what we're seeing from a brand perspective. There are some interesting insights. Singapore, for instance, a third party recently commissioned some research which showed that people who are on Snapchat, 51% of them on a daily basis aren't on kind of other platforms. So we're seeing kind of a unique audience build up from that perspective as well, which is really exciting and helping our conversations with brands, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you hear all about how this part of the world is very mobile first. I presume that's music to your ears, and I guess, you know, we hear a lot about this part of the world being, you know, much more willing to try new things, and is that something that you encountered to
Absolutely, and you know, just to the connectivity, I think you're in the top 6 markets in terms of internet connection, not only in terms of obviously smartphone penetration and broader industry strengths, but more broadly, you've always been incredibly innovative as consumers, which is really exciting for a platform like ours.
Fantastic, and I guess just to sort of wrap up, I guess, what would be, if you had some sort of key tips for brands that want to make sure they're connecting with their consumers correctly in the sort of ephemeral content space? If you're starting out, what are the things top of your list that you should know?
From our perspective, what I referenced earlier in terms of if you're only speaking with your close friends for 2 to 3 seconds, if you're a brand that's demanding more than that amount of time, then make sure that the message that you're telling is really relevant, really insightful, and really purposeful to that particular audience. Mobile first, obviously, that's not unique to us, but obviously the broader industry, and making sure that you're taking the time to test and iterate different creative formats that are appropriate to platform would be kind of our key principles from that perspective.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's pretty much us done. So,
Great.
Kathryn, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much.